Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. A man stands at the peak of power, surrounded by wealth, beauty, and praise. Yet within him, a quiet question grows louder each day. Is this all there is? Behind every fleeting pleasure, he senses a deeper void, a hunger not satisfied by flesh nor fame. Now let me ask you something personal. How many times have you chased after something you thought would fulfill you, only to be left emptier than before? What do we really gain from instant gratification? Does it satisfy the soul, or silence it temporarily? This video isn't about morality. It's not about shaming pleasure. It's about something far more profound: direction. The men who changed the world weren't those who indulged in every desire, but those who learned to master them. They knew that energy once scattered cannot sustain a legacy, but when directed, it becomes unstoppable. As Viktor Frankl once said, when a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. Today, we explore how history's greatest men chose meaning over momentary gratification, and why doing so didn't weaken them. It made them legends. We live in a time unlike any other. Pleasure isn't hidden anymore. It's advertised. It's algorithmic. It follows you, whispers to you, taps on your shoulder every time you reach for your phone. From endless swiping to instant gratification, we are drowning in stimulation. Pornography, sexualized marketing, the dopamine rush of a like, all designed to keep us chasing, never arriving. The seduction is subtle. It doesn't shout, it seduces, it promises connection, but delivers emptiness, and with every hit of dopamine, we lose a bit more of our center. What once thrilled us quickly becomes routine. The goalposts of satisfaction keep moving, and we follow, breathless, distracted. A 2020 study from the University of Cambridge revealed how repeated exposure to pornographic content literally reshapes the brain's reward system, making it harder to derive pleasure from real-life intimacy or purpose-driven work. What we think is harmless indulgence becomes long-term erosion of focus and presence. But here's the truth they won't tell you. The more pleasure becomes accessible, the more discipline becomes rare. And rare things are powerful. Mastery in a world of indulgence is no longer ordinary. It's revolutionary, it's magnetic, and it's deeply needed, let's get honest. Lust isn't always about sex. Sometimes it's about escape, about distraction, about the fear of sitting alone with your thoughts. We don't always chase pleasure because we enjoy it. Often we chase it because we're running from something: anxiety, grief, inadequacy. Lust becomes a loop, a cycle of highs and lows that leaves us more hollow each time. You ever notice how the pleasure fades, but the emptiness lingers? Like an echo that won't stop repeating until it's acknowledged. We try to outrun the silence, but the silence always catches up. Carl Jung once said, "But people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And isn't that what much of our behavior is? Avoidance in disguise, noise covering pain. When we give in to every impulse, we aren't free. We're enslaved, not by others, but by ourselves. By our inability to sit in discomfort, to wait, to choose. Freedom doesn't come from acting on every desire. It comes from knowing which ones are worthy of your energy and letting the rest pass like waves crashing harmlessly at your feet. Real power lies in the pause, in that quiet second between impulse and action. That's where character is born. Take Tolstoy, a man who had everything: fame, fortune, literary mastery, and still felt the weight of despair pressing on his chest. He wrote, "Anna Karenina inspired nations," and still asked, Why live if death erases all? The applause didn't silence the ache. The parties didn't numb the question. His search for meaning wasn't a detour, it was destiny. His answer didn't come from another affair or celebration. It came when he renounced luxury and chose simplicity, when he exchanged indulgence for intention, when he stopped asking the world to give him meaning and started giving it to others. The same happened to Siddhartha, the man who would become the Buddha, walking away from his palace to sit in silence under a tree. He turned his back on comfort not out of self-hate, but in pursuit of truth. Or Gandhi, whose vow of celibacy wasn't denial, but discipline. When restraint is practiced out of choice, he said, it becomes strength. Their greatness wasn't born from indulgence. It was forged in the fire of self-mastery, a mastery that began the moment they stopped chasing and started listening. What would happen if you chose purpose over impulse? Here's a question we don't ask enough. Where is your energy going? Every day you wake up with a finite amount. You can waste it chasing highs, or you can invest it in building something real. A business, a book, a bond with someone who matters. What will you leave behind that wasn't just consumed, but created? Lust drains. Purpose multiplies. It amplifies everything it touches. Marcus Aurelius, one of Rome's greatest emperors, wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And what is lust, if not a need? Outside event masquerading as internal need? He led armies, ruled empires, and still spent his nights reflecting on restraint. He understood that the strength of a leader isn't shown in what he commands, but in what he controls within. We remember men like that because they didn't scatter their fire, they focused it. They built not just empires, but principles. So again, what are you building with your fire? Let's reframe this completely. This isn't about becoming less of a man, it's about becoming more of one. This isn't about repression, it's about redirection. Sexual energy, when harnessed, becomes creative energy. The same force that leads a man to chase can be channeled to build. It's the difference between erosion and irrigation. Think of Nikola Tesla, Isaac Newton, or Da Vinci. Men who turned inner intensity into outward legacy. They weren't less passionate, they were more focused. They didn't waste their power, they used it. Napoleon Hill, in Think and Grow Rich, called this sexual transmutation, the transformation of desire into drive. He believed that the most successful men weren't those who denied their urges, but those who disciplined them until they served a higher aim. What if you took all that longing and poured it into something that outlives you? The world doesn't need more men who surrender to every whim. It needs more men who stand firm, not cold, not disconnected, but directed, alive, on purpose. You know who's truly powerful? The man who doesn't flinch at temptation because he's not searching anymore. He's not looking to fill a void, he's full. And from that fullness he gives. The man who's whole, who's not looking for someone to complete him or for moments to validate him. He no longer plays the game of appearances. He lives in alignment. This kind of freedom doesn't come from the world, it comes from within. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." True power is silent. It doesn't brag, it doesn't chase, it walks into a room and changes. It Not with volume, but with presence. When you no longer need to prove, chase, or please, you become rare. And what is rare becomes sacred. This is where it all leads, not to shame, not to judgment, but to reflection. What will they say about you when the lights go out? Will they remember someone who was always searching, or someone who stood for
something? You don't have to be perfect, just intentional. You don't need to renounce pleasure.
Just choose not to be ruled by it, because in the end, he who masters his desires doesn't lose pleasure, he gains peace. And peace is the loudest legacy. So if this spoke to something inside you, like a quiet voice you've been ignoring, don't let it fade. Like, subscribe, and when you're ready, watch our video on Tolstoy and the meaning of life. It might just be the next step on your journey. Thank you for being here.